Welcome to the Let's Talk with Paula show, where we talk about interesting topics and we bring on experts. And one of the experts has become almost like a co-host, okay, because he knows a lot of things that I can't tell you about. So that's why we try to make sure that we bring you good information. So he's here with me again tonight, and I just want to say thank you for coming.
Well, good evening, Paula, and thank you for having me on the show.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very happy to be here with you and your TV audience.
Okay. And so tell us a little bit about you.
Well, my name is Donald Bell. I'm an attorney here in Maryland. I'm located here in Prince George's County. My office is located in Greenbelt, and I'm happy to serve the people of Prince George's County and the surrounding areas. I've been practicing law for, this is year 21, and I focus primarily on individuals, consumers in areas of bankruptcy and foreclosure defense.
And you know, that's why it's so important, because we do live in PG County, and you know, it's a lot of things that's going on all over the world, and it just depends on where you live, on what's affecting you, you know. And so I was just wondering, with the stock market going up and down like it's been going, has it really affected people filing for bankruptcy and going into foreclosure?
Well, I don't know that the recent issues with the stock market has had an impact on people filing bankruptcies as of yet. I think a couple of things that I want to bring to your attention. Number one, delinquencies on credit cards are at an all-time high, and the amount of debt that consumers or households are carrying are at an all-time high. And also, one of the other big issues is student loans. You know, there are quite a few people who are in default on student loans. So I think all of these issues and the volatility of the stock market, may lead to more filings. But I think the most important thing that we got to look at is, the impact of the tariffs that are going to have on everyday people. A lot of folks who invest in the stock market, unless we're talking about, like retirement accounts and things of that nature, are typically middle class, sort of well-to-do type people. Mm-hmm. But one of the issues that I believe that's going to really impact people is if these tariffs continue and the price of consumer goods increase, the price of food, because a lot of the food, like the fruits and vegetables, come from out of the country. They come from Mexico. If those prices begin to go up, and we talk about this all the time, the cost of meat, the cost of milk, bread, eggs, once those prices begin to increase, that's going to have a negative impact upon, regular everyday people like you and I. And I think that those type of issues are going to cause, more people to have to file bankruptcy.
Well, thank you for that, because the eggs have gone up. That was the whole discussion that when he was running, that there was an egg thing. Every time person was talking, it was about eggs, and the price was going to go down. And I think that's one of the things that in these protests that you see, that some of the signs say, "But what happened about the eggs?" And then that person had nerve. I guess he got tired of people asking him about it. He said, let's stop talking about them damn eggs, okay? And I said, for real? Anyway.
Well, people vote their pocketbooks.
Yeah.
Particularly in this country.
Yes.
Economic issues typically take, the forefront. People, care very much about social issues. Mm-hmm. But I believe at the end of the day, people vote their pocketbooks. I mean, that was a phrase that, previous President Bill Clinton said, is the economy stupid and people vote their pocketbooks. So when the cost of milk and eggs and bread begins to increase, or if there's a supply shortage, I think that that's going to cause major issues and whatnot. And the other issue is, when those prices go up, people are going to probably start using more credit cards and, taking out loans and things of that nature, particularly people who don't make as much money. I mean, they
Well, if
take
you're a
out,
senior citizen, excuse me, but if you're a senior citizen and you're disabled and you're a veteran, disabled,
and you're on a fixed income.
yeah, and you're on a fixed income, it makes a big difference on what you do, what you do and how you live. I mean, you've been living on a thread, and if you're a single person, you don't have that additional income, and if you don't have any kids, you're really in trouble. That are old enough that can help out.
Yeah. So but I'm hoping that, deals will be, trade deals will be able to be worked out, and that we won't have, a huge increase on consumer goods and whatnot, and it won't have that type of detrimental impact. Even though, the worse the economy gets, probably the more business that, will come through our doors. But I just don't want people to have that kind of negative impact.
Well, they say that 2 months we're into this thing, almost 2 months, and they said, and I watched, and that's all I got a chance to do, just watch the news all night. Is that it's already going to have it's already having a negative effect, and they don't know whether or not in 4 months, let's say if everything turns around, whether it's going to be enough to turn us around, because we're definitely with the stock market headed for a depression. And that was a question that was asked. And first they were saying recession. Then they were saying inflation. And now we almost at the point. But if anybody just watches what's going on, if we continue down the road that we're going into a depression. Well, and people are going to lose their homes. And wait a minute, but I just let me just say this, because let's think about the Social Security. Okay, those group of people, and all of us that are either getting Social Security or Medicare, promised that they would not touch those and affect it. Well, you don't have to worry about Medicare talking about it or putting it in the news, because Social Security pays for your Medicare. You pay premiums, okay? You might have to pay a copay on your medicine if you don't get one of those, if Medicare doesn't cover it. But Medicare is funded by Social Security. That's how they get paid, okay? So you don't have to put Medicare in the news. I'm messing with your Medicare, but you messing with Social Security. Okay, in the news that I've been watching on MSNBC and CNN, the local channels that I have in my area, I watch them all just to see whether or not who's saying what or if it's consistent. But what they're saying is that, if we don't put back into that Social Security system, and how does that get fed? It gets fed through you and I. It gets fed through people that have been working since they're 16 years old. Okay, they take out Social Security tax. The Social Security tax is being fed by the people. So if you close down the Social Security Administration, you close down the federal government, and you fire all these people in all these different agencies, even in the private sector where people are trying, they have to lay off people. I mean, it's even in the hospitals. I was just in the hospital the other day. It's affecting your hospital, the supplies and the goods that they get, because it's from where they're getting it from. So if no money is being fed back into Social Security by taking your taxes, because we're the ones that make Social Security. The individual person that is out there working every day are the ones that actually pays into Social Security and it has made it. And that's why they used to say a long time ago, well, we don't do anything better if they don't raise it, blah, blah, blah. We ain't gonna have no Social Security by a year, so and so and so and so. And then they increased it again. Now they've decreased it based on what's happened, because you don't have anybody that's working. All these people are getting laid off. You don't have any people that are working that you can take that money and feed it back into the system so the system can continuously prosper. So you don't have to say anything about Medicare, because if Social Security is being depleted, Medicare is not going to get paid. And I think that people need to realize that. I know that they're marching out there about Social Security and Medicare, but I think they think that there are two different entities, but one feeds into the other. Okay.
Well, I just want to make a couple points. Number one, people are working. Unemployment in this country is like under like 5%. Okay, so people are working. There are people who work for the federal government, and the federal government makes up less than maybe 7 or 8% of the total workforce in this country. So that means there's another 94, 95% of people out there that don't work for the federal government. Okay? So people are working. People are still paying into Social Security. I don't know that there are issues with people paying into Social Security. I'm not trying to say that the people who are being let go by the federal government, that's not going to create some type of economic hardship for those people. But there are people that are working. There are people who are paying into Social Security. The federal government is not shut down.
Okay, so let's go back though to what your initial statement is. So yes, you got people that are working, but you have millions of people, if you just look at the different entities that you have that make up the federal government, that are laid off from work.
There aren't millions of people who have been laid off by the federal government.
I said, and other entities, okay? And so it does come up to 1 million people, okay? Based on what I'm looking at nighttime, I'm not there, but based on what's being said on these different news stations that are reputable, they're telling you now that the economy and people being laid off, and what I say is so great about this country is that there are people that are out there in private sectors that are trying to hire these people so that they will have jobs, okay? So no, we're not totally dependent on the federal government, and this is not me because I'm not an expert. I'm telling you what the experts have been saying, okay? So the experts that I watch at nighttime that are reputable.
Okay, but I read.
Yeah.
I don't watch as much TV, but I read, and the facts are there aren't millions of people who've been laid off.
Okay, so how many people would you say were laid off?
As far as the federal government is concerned?
No, I'm talking about overall the different entities that are being laid off or having to quit or whatever. How many people do you think? Because who is it that controls the percentage amount that they feed to the news? One person is not even letting certain social medias come in to have a conversation with them, okay?
Well, I will tell you this. Well, no, because you asked a question.
Okay.
So the numbers of the terms of people who are working, those numbers,
laid off.
And the numbers of people, I mean, that information is readily available. It's provided by the federal government. And so you can go to the Labor Department, you can find that information.
Okay.
So
go look.
So I'm not trying to sit here and argue with you about it.
I'm not arguing. I'm just. I'm not arguing.
But sometimes, you know, you go on social media and social media gives you information that may not be correct.
I don't use social media.
But let me finish. But you also go to these cable channels, okay? And I'm not going to mention their names. Some of the information that they're giving you may not be accurate as well. So I'm not saying don't watch it, but what I am going to say is you can go and fact check it yourself.
Yes.
You can go to the Labor Department, okay? You can go to the state of Maryland.
Okay.
Okay, and you can look at the number of people because, you know, people who are laid off, you know, they apply for unemployment. So you can go to the state of Maryland and you can go to the state of Maryland's website and you can find out the number of people who've applied for unemployment in the state. Okay, you can go to the Labor Department and you can look at the number of people who have actually, you know, because they keep these statistics.
Right.
You know.
Right.
And these are facts.
Right.
Not something that somebody's saying because they're trying to get viewers. So I'm just saying, before we put out information about millions upon millions, that may be the case 6 months from now or 9 months from now, but it's not to the degree that it was like during the pandemic when millions of people were laid off because, you know, the country shut down.
Well, Okay, I watch local news aside from that, just so that I'm not just watching any one in particular news channel.
Okay.
So I'm looking at your local news to see whether it's consistent with those other channels, to see whether this channel is consistent with that channel, and information is being put out there. So I'm not looking at one particular
Well, we'll have to
television
agree to
station.
disagree on that
you know.
because I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's why I have you in
Yeah.
here. Okay, I'm just saying that both people have given us a whole bunch of propaganda, and okay, so you just have to make sure that you go to those places where you tell people that they should go to see whether or not it's accurate.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that I was told and I didn't even know, that I don't go on social media, okay? But I was told that a lot of these companies that were bought up by individual, they bought them up so you couldn't fact check, because that's where a lot of people was going to. And I didn't realize that they had bought up so many social media chats, ones. I'm not going to say the name, whatever, but whoever the person was that bought it, and they said, and the whole purpose of them doing that so that people could not go back and fact check, because they know that people use those sites instead of looking at the places that you just named. They also, I was surprised when somebody told me too that, and then the next day I saw it on the news. Okay, that's why people can't fact check, but they did not tell them what you just said. Now it would have been better if they said that social media, blah blah blah, but if they had gone on and told them, if that's the only source that you're using, then you should go look at this place and go look at that place. But that's why we're here, and that's why I bring up topics so that we can tell people the truth. Okay, I just have a passion about all this crazy stuff that's going on. Okay.
Well, I mean, there are a lot of things that are going on, but you gotta remain steadfast. And something that I believe is, you got to still get up in the morning, and if you got a job to go to, you got to go to work, and you got to take care of your family, and you got to do what you got to do. You can't let the naysayers come at you and create a false narrative, or a narrative that they want you to believe. Okay, there are people out there who are suffering. There are people out there who lost their jobs. There are people out there who are going to lose their jobs, particularly in this area, because, there are a large number of people in this area who work for the federal government. But, I still think that you still have to get up, and you still got to be productive, and you got to, do what you got to do. Mm-hmm.
Well, now.
So I'm not going to let what somebody's saying on the news, have, this negative impact upon me. I hear, I hear these things, I see these things, and then, I go and I look these things up for myself to sort of see, like, hey, what's going on, because I want to make my own decisions. So I'm not going to let like something that somebody says on the news or something that I read in the newspaper, I'm not going to allow them to sort of, influence me one way or the other until I know what the facts are. Okay,
so what I said about Social Security is true. Now, I'm not saying that I don't know what the numbers are.
Yeah.
But if
Social Security is not funded by the federal government. Again, it's like you said.
Individual people.
It's funded by people who are paying into it.
Yes.
Into Social Security.
Yes. And if you people are not feeding that money back into the system, I don't care whether you're working for Joe Blow's store down the street, everybody gets federal taxes taken off, Social Security taken off their
checks. And there are things that can be done with Social Security that will sort of help Social Security. So one of the issues is, people who are high earners who earn over a certain amount of money, they only have to pay a certain percentage up into it. Mm-hmm. So if you earn over, I think it's over $180,000, $190,000. I don't know if that number is accurate, but it's somewhere in that neighborhood, because my wife and I were talking about it. Mm-hmm. At a certain point, once you max out the amount of money that you're supposed to pay into Social Security, then you stop paying into it. So a lot of people who are high earners, they max out like in month 7 or month 8, and then, they don't pay into Social Security anymore until the next year. So if you remove that cap, then, on like high earners and whatnot, then, that may create a situation where, you have so much more money coming to Social Security. And then there are other things that you can do. You know, I'm at an age right now where I'm 49. I'll be 50 this year.
Oh, wow.
But but there are younger people. Like I have a 21-year-old son.
Right.
So if you look at his life expectancy, versus your life expectancy or my life expectancy, his life expectancy is probably going to be much higher. So my life expectancy may be like, for the average person, man, it may be like 73, 74, 75, something like that. So, you could take, for younger people, you can take and move the age back a couple of years. So instead of them being eligible at 62, I'm not saying for people who are coming up on it now, for people who are like, 45 and older, but I'm just saying for people who are like 21 and younger, you could take the age, so you could take the age that they'd be eligible and move it back a couple of years, and that would extend the life. I mean, that would extend like any type of issues in terms of funding and things of that nature with Social Security. And you can make adjustments for people who do like manual labor and things of that nature. Say, if you do manual labor, then we're not going to move the age back for you, or if you have health issues or something like that, we're not going to move the age back. No. But there are things that you can do to Social Security to fix the issues as it relates to funding and things of that nature.
You need to run one of these next elections so that you can keep people abreast and give them information and feed it to them. But everybody should be doing something.
Yeah.
And I think I'm doing something that's coming here, and that's why I have experts. Okay.
Yeah. I think that is so important, because part of living in this country and being a citizen of this country is, you have the right to participate, but I think that you should be required to participate, because
participate in what?
In our democracy, in ensuring that
it stays,
that we're able to maintain it, and we're able to pass it on to the next generation. Because I've been blessed to live in this country. I've been blessed to serve this country. Yes. And I've been blessed to be able to go to school. Yes. And have a good career and whatnot. And you've been blessed.
Of course, I have. I really have been blessed. I mean, I started working when Marion Barry started that school program for 16 years old to be able to work during the summertime.
Marion Barry took people off the street. When I first moved to this area, people loved Marion Barry because he
put
folks in the middle class.
Yes.
He gave them jobs and and people still had to work hard.
Yes.
But,
but
exactly
like I said,
what you're talking
16.
about. Yeah.
And so I've been paying into Social Security since I was 16.
Yeah.
Okay, because they don't care how old you are. If you got a job, those certain taxes coming out. Okay. So I think there's somewhere that somebody thought that it was like Medicaid, where it wasn't. I'm not saying no names. I'm just saying I don't think that they really investigated to see what the difference was between Social Security and Medicaid and Medicare. Okay. And I think that they thought that it was a system that the government was paying for, which is not. That's the only point that I'm trying to make. Social Security is people. People pay into Social Security. Yeah. People are the ones that make Social Security possible, so you can get your funding taken out for Medicare. That's the only point that I'm trying to make, because I don't think that anybody's looked into, because some of these things you can tell that they walk back, that now because somebody has approached and asked them the question, and then they turn around and say, oops, then they walk it back. And
well, I think there's going to be a concerted effort to try to cut Medicaid.
But that's been forever.
Yeah, because Medicaid was expanded under the I call it Obamacare, but it's called.
Well, I forget they changed the name, but Medicare had been around long before Obama.
No, but I'm saying it was Medicaid.
I wish they stop blaming stuff on Obama.
Medicaid was expanded significantly under that to where a lot of people who didn't have health insurance,
yes, that's what he was trying to make it.
were able to get health insurance,
yes,
under Medicaid. So
yes.
So and that's the reason why a lot of people are alive today, because they got Health insurance. Healthcare.
Yes, yeah, but I wish people would stop blaming stuff on Obama. Obama was trying to make it possible. So
Well, I'm not blaming anything.
I'm not saying you,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I know that there are people that blame everything on him and Biden. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying that.
Well, I think history will look back upon
if they eliminate
that.
they eliminate history, you're not gonna be able to go back and do anything because
Yeah.
they're trying to get rid of the Smithsonian and anything that has to do about anybody that's other than the National Women's Black Museum. They're trying to get rid of the Smithsonian. They're trying to get rid of. And it's another building downtown that they're trying to get rid of, and they're trying to rewrite the books.
Well, I would
the
say
statues.
elections
they're
have
taking down.
consequences, and we got some elections that's going to be coming up because every 2 years you vote on who's going to be in Congress. So if you don't want that stuff to happen, then you need to start organizing now, and you need to get out and vote so you can change the dynamics of what's going on in Congress.
But the people did get out and vote. But it's people that trusted that voted that we are where we are, okay? So, I mean, based on what they say the numbers were, people did get out and vote. But they trusted the person that told them that they were going to protect all these things. And now they're mad because they see that they're not. They got what y'all used to say, the okie doke. Not you too young. It used to call the okie doke, okay?
Yeah, but the good news is, in less than 2 years, you get to vote again.
Well, in 2 years, they're saying, the economists are saying, and come to find out, the economist that he had is not a real person. It's the name of a book that he wrote, that they changed it around, so that they use. But the economists are saying totally different. We're not gonna have a country if we're gonna be in a depression if something doesn't happen, and we're gonna stop. And that's why I have you here, my man. That's why you're here. Thank you. Okay.
When I never graduated from high school, I realized I wanted to go back to school because I didn't want to work these back-breaking jobs the rest of my life. With the help of my father and having my son, that was all the motivation that I needed to come back to school. I felt accomplished, made me feel that I could take on whatever challenges life throws at you.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.